This week's episode of Couch Potatoes Unite! Is sponsored by Found Penny Studio. Found Penny Studio is exclusively fulfilling our Patreon Tier 3 merchandise perk by doing what they do best, creating to celebrate everyday moments like your favorite TV series. Check out Found Penny Studio's creations at foundpennystudio.com and find Couch Potatoes Unite on Patreon at www.patreon.com/couchpotatoesunite.
You say you want to watch a drama. You say you want to watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama. Or you can watch it with your daddy.
You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler, so you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name, because in this case there are only two lights, and we won't gaslight you into thinking otherwise. Please just appreciate the lights we have. Okay, my name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like, for at Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, ! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panels and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, via Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon Music to stay on top of brand new episodes. And basically, that is wherever you get your podcasts. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Stranger Things, iZombie, The Good Place, Game of Thrones, American Horror Story, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Charmed, Riverdale, and the Arrowverse or CW-verse on the CW. We've published several episodes in our Looking Back series covering such diverse shows as MASH, Dollhouse, Breaking Bad, Revenge, and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Plus, new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Altered Carbon, Doctor Who, Schitt's Creek, Westworld, Fuller House, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Will and Grace, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The 100, The Crown, Supernatural, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. The Outlander panel will get caught up on Season 4. The Breaking Better series panel will cover the first two seasons of Better Call Saul. And the This Is Us panel will get caught up on Season 4 of that beloved family drama. We'll be launching new panels covering The Orville, Big Little Lies, The Good Doctor, Call the Midwife, The Animaniacs, Killing Eve, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, American Gods, Grey's Anatomy, and Cobra Kai. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. We'll thank the Golden Girls for being friends. We'll cry bazinga for Big Bang Theory. We'll dive deep into the fantasy world of The Magicians. We'll navigate the witty political satire of Parks and Recreation, and we'll become psychos for Psych. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers, comedy shows, Comic-Cons, game stores. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff, including in these semi-quarantine times still. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to the website, our YouTube channel, our Apple iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. Plus, new in 2021, you can subscribe to us via Patreon in an effort to get fancier, to upgrade some of our stuff, to build capacity. Couch Potatoes Unite is on Patreon to provide the opportunity to subscribe for perks, including member-exclusive email and Discord access, bonus content, TV-themed merch, the ability to join CPU for occasional watch parties, and in so doing, possibly to place priority requests for shows that we cover. If any of this sounds like fun to you, head on over to Patreon or download the app and search for our name, Couch Potatoes Unite. Don't forget the exclamation point. In the meantime, if you don't hear your show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of the outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. Just don't send your psychotic android twin brother after us. There are easier ways. Today's panel and I are continuing the biggest looking back series we've ever launched by request of one of our panel members and our second most involved panelist, who made such an impassioned speech about this series of series at one of our live Comic-Con events. We were moved to embark upon this now continuing mission of galactic proportions. If you aren't already aware, from time to time, CPU chooses shows of all types, but usually of some fame or notoriety to reminisce about, and to consider whether or not they age gracefully like an android obsessed with the human condition, or don't hold up as well like an omnipotent alien being obsessed with testing the human condition. As such, this is another chapter of our Looking Back podcast episodes, wherein we review a show that has been gone, either via natural end or cancellation, for some time. And this is but one chapter in a 30-episode or more, it's probably more, series in which we will explore each individual season of a science fiction universe that comes back without never completely going away in cycles that have recurred for more than 50 years. Today, we offer you episode 10 of this mega series, which will cover the entire Star Trek franchise. In today's 10th episode, we'll be discussing the 6th season of The Next Generation. Each new episode in this new CPU podcast franchise will progress through subsequent seasons of all the Star Trek TV series with additional coverage of the films. Furthermore, our panel will be rotating moderation duties. However, your friendly neighborhood Chief Couch Potato and Captain of the Starship CPU is not ready to give away the helm just yet. I am moderating today's discussion and the entire run of The Next Generation because this is my favorite chapter if you haven't heard of Star Trek, and I am the Chief Couch Potato, so I called it. Also, at various points in this mega series, we'll present top 10 best and bottom 10 worst episode lists around various themes chosen by the moderator in question, as we tend to do with our retrospective series. We can't get started without that plot summary, though, so to remind you, listeners, Star Trek The Next Generation, or TNG, is an American science fiction television series created by Gene Roddenberry. It originally aired from September 28, 1987 to May 23, 1994 in syndication, spanning 178 episodes over the course of 7 seasons. Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4 aired from September 24, 1990 to June 17, 1991, with a total of 26 episodes. The third series in the Star Trek franchise, it is the second sequel to Star Trek the original series. Set in the 24th century, when Earth is part of the United Federation of Planets, it follows the adventures of a Starfleet starship, the USS Enterprise D, and its exploration of the Milky Way galaxy. The Next Generation features a crew starring Patrick Stewart as Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Jonathan Frakes as Commander William Riker, Brent Spiner as Lieutenant Commander Data, Michael Dorn as Lieutenant Worf, LeVar Burton as Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge, Marina Sirtis as Counselor Deanna Troi, Gates McFadden as Dr. Beverly Crusher, and a new Enterprise. The series was broadcast in first-run syndication, with dates and times varying among individual television stations. Today, in part 10 of our many multi-part Star Trek series, our modestly sized crew of Enterprise faithful and Trekkers extraordinaire, namely Nick, Sarah, Kyle, and Michael, along with your very involved moderator, will talk about the finer and less fine points of Season 6 of The Next Generation. It should be noted that all of our panelists have viewed the entire Next Gen series and may discuss sensitive plot points, so for those of you who have not watched Star Trek The Next Generation, first of all, we'd be happy to beam you aboard, and second, if you plan to do so, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel. How are you?
Good. Great. Awesome.
All right. The enthusiasm is middling. Are you ready to talk about Season 6? The penultimate season of The Next Generation?
Yes. Yeah.
That's so much better. So, of course, listener, I must remind you that we do not go over the standard CPU character question that changes with each show we do in every season of a series. However, we will review what we said in our very first episode covering The Next Generation to remind you. Hopefully our panelists remember. It's like a test every time we go around this carousel. But panel, please remind the listener who you are by your first name and what you answered along the standard CPU character question for The Next Generation. Who would like to go
now?
Yes, right now. Presently and currently, yes.
I'm Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Hi. So I mentioned before that I do love this series, and as such, I was Picard because I do love the series very much so, but I was also a little bit of Deanna Troi because I like the character relationships and I like the interplay of those really awesome characters, and I think this season has a lot of that.
All right, welcome back, Michael.
I can go next. I'm
Please
Nick.
do. Hi, Nick.
I was just trying to find, I'd never remember, what am I, Beverly or Picard?
You love Beverly, but your answer is Picard.
I feel like happens every time.
Almost, for you. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I never remember either. I think it was Geordi, but...
Okay, Nick is not done answering. Hold on.
No, that's fine. I'm Picard. I love this show.
Okay, fine. Welcome back, Nick, I guess. And then the person who jumped in forgetfully and said he was Geordi is...
Kyle.
Okay, good. That's good. Yep. And you
And
were...
definitely not Picard, because it's not my favorite Star Trek. It's still great. I still love the characters, but it's always second fiddle to the original for me.
And then we also always try to remember something that's very important, because your wife isn't here to help you, but we always go through this. No, he's just being stubborn. You're such a Taurus. What is the dynamic, Kyle?
I am the moderator's brother-in-law. I'm married to her sister Hillary, who's normally on these podcasts with us, just not the Star Trek ones, because it's just not her type of nerdy, but usually the comic book ones, she'd be here right beside me.
And giving the disclaimer. Welcome back, Kyle.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
And I married Nick, so that makes him my husband.
That is the story we're going with.
Well, you were there, so
That's true.
You saw it happen.
Hashtag memories.
Yeah, it was a while ago, guys. And I am Commander Will Riker because he's second in command, and it's my second favorite series. So I did that.
You're not Thomas Riker?
I'm not Thomas. Nope, I'm Will Riker. Thomas is his own thing.
And what thing is he? Well, we'll find out. Welcome back, Sarah. And of course, my name is Kylie. I both moderate and participate on this Star Trek extravaganza. And of course, I was Picard. I still am Picard because I already mentioned it's my favorite Star Trek. I love it. I love it the best out of all the Star Treks. Sue me! But also, I just really like Patrick Stewart and Jean-Luc Picard. He's just a great guy. And I would love to meet him someday, but that's beside the point. Because today, we're talking about the 6th season of Star Trek The Next Generation. We've already been through the first 5 to much success. If you've been listening to our series thus far, you know what we do is kind of talk about the season generally, and then we drill down to what we consider some of our favorite episodes from the season, some of our least favorite episodes from the season, which is not only a great discussion point for us, but also helps us to set up what you'll hear about in our season 7 episode, when we do our top 10 and bottom 10 worst episodes of the entire series, which I'm very excited for, although that's not for another couple of months. So let's talk about season 6. Tell me, what did you like? What didn't you like? What worked? What didn't work? What are your general comments?
I can start because my first comment is overall, I believe for me, season 6 is just a little not as good as season 5 in this rewatch. I've kind of noticed that the highs were lower, but the lows were higher for me. Like, the bad ones weren't as bad as the ones I didn't like as much as season 5, but the ones I liked were, like, some of my favorites of the whole series.
I would agree with that assessment. I already have established that I think 4 is my favorite season. It's kind of the apex. But I agree that season 6 is solid. It's really good. But it's not, to me, as possibly as riveting or as engaging, but only slightly less than the 2 seasons previously.
What we get Deanna in a uniform, and I think that it does her well. I think it's very flattering. So there you go. Brought up one of your favorites, Michael, right off the bat.
Oh yeah, she's even said that she was gunning for wearing a normal uniform for many, many years on the series, and it took a completely different captain for it to happen.
I actually found that reasoning annoying because of the behind the scenes of trying to make her a sex object, and that's why she's not in the uniform. I hate that it's not one of our core. It just should have one day. She just should have been in a uniform, and there shouldn't have been anything about it. And it should have. What, Kyle?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
And it should have happened, like, not season 6, but maybe episode 6 of the whole series. It's this weird dynamic of, like, wow, they take mental health seriously in the future, which is a bold stance for the early 90s, but not really. Like, I don't... Could you imagine if any other character was just wearing whatever on the bridge?
Hey, Kirk was shirtless on the bridge half the time, so I guess it balances out.
Yeah, Kirk was like making out with people, all the new aliens. I'm sure that's past the Prime Directive, just saying.
It was more of a sub-prime directive in TOS.
Oh, okay. The Chain of Command episodes, to me, are a highlight. Hint, foreshadow, they will appear on my list of bests because there's a lot of shaking up that happens by that guy, that captain, who I can't think of his name.
Jellicoe!
There you go. And
Cox, great actor.
Yep. And some of the stuff that he does last. It isn't just Counselor Troy's uniform, but it is fascinating that sticks after all that time, and you do wonder why it didn't happen before that. Like, what was the purpose of not having her in a uniform?
Well, we know.
I mean, within the show, not outside of the, yeah.
I mean, to be weird, but I'm not generally attracted to women that much, but I think she's even sexier in the uniform. I think she looks great in that uniform, so...
Well, yeah, the cat suit she was wearing is the epitome of what, like, the 80s thought was attractive.
I guess that's true, but I sometimes felt that it didn't do her beautiful figure the justice that the uniform does, so there.
And maybe if you think back to episode 1, it didn't look that weird when they had part of the uniform for Starfleet was the scant. Even guys were in the little skirts, if you look at Encounter at Farpoint. But that stopped after the first episode.
All right, commentary on the uniform. Nice.
That was for our fashion-forward couch potatoes that love to discuss the fashion of the show.
Of course. Michael, what were you saying?
I said, thank goodness that miniskirt goes away.
Yes, indeed. What are some other things you liked or didn't like?
I will say there is a lot of transporter, and I think this season is probably why I would never use the transporter. When you look, there's like 3 or 4 episodes where the transporter is the root cause of everything. I mean, you have them turning people into kids. You have extra Rikers. You have Barclay and his fear of the transporter. It just keeps popping up in this season, and between him and Bones, like, yeah, I would never use that thing.
Counterpoint, the issue with Riker didn't kill him, it just made 2 instead. Same thing we've...
It did it with Kirk, so why isn't one Riker evil?
I don't know. But it comes up in Scotty's episode. It was saving...
But in that case, it did save Scotty. Granted, it completely killed the kid he was trying to save.
Yeah.
Like a prequel to the Tuvix disaster in Voyager, so...
Oh my god.
Everyone get excited. There's
That thing haunts my dreams.
That's for our Voyager podcast, but you can get excited for that, guys.
Foreshadow.
Speaking of a random aside, Tuvok shows up in this season.
Yeah,
He's
he's evil.
Yeah, he's in the I Heart in Space episode.
It's called
Starship Mine.
Starship Mine. I was going to say Spaceship Mine. I like that one.
I do too.
That one's good.
I also do. There is a lot, speaking of stuff that is a theme of the season, yes, there are a lot of transporter accidents, which, you know, transporters, it's a technology that people got to work through. You're splitting people's atoms apart and putting them back together again. There's bound to be things, is all I'm saying. But then
I feel like they're safer than cars.
Maybe. But then, aside from that, the big kind of chunk of, I guess, repetitive theming in this season is there are a lot of Picard-centric episodes, which makes me very happy. So Starship Mine is one of them that I think I'm glad we are mentioning. It's going to feature on something that I'll say, I'm not going to tell you where it falls.
Now we know 2 of your 5.
You're assuming there's just 5. Dun, dun, dun. But Starship Mine is really fun because it is Die Hard in space, but he's like so like cool and suave, and he does beat up Tuvok a little bit. It's fun.
I think he kills Tuvok.
He doesn't kill anyone.
He killed someone. Okay, maybe I was just tired.
Incapacitates, I'd say, pretty handily, but not...
But then the beam kills him anyway, so...
Yes, everyone dies.
Not Picard.
I mean, this season is kind of too like where we get kind of like the first contact version of Picard, where he's much more of a man of action and less
The diplomat.
Yeah, which I like the balance. I like Picard when he's balanced like that.
I would agree.
I had strong Indiana Jones vibes from him between this one and I don't remember the name of the episode, but the one where the archaeology professor comes back and gives him the
cheese.
There you go. That one.
That one was weird. Why is that guy gotta guilt him so much? Like, he's the most successful starship captain. Like, he's doing fine, dude. I don't know. This is weird.
He's doing all right. We get a glimpse of what we basically get a lot of in Picard, is that some of the admirals don't like the decisions he's made. Mainly Nechayev, but...
Oh, yeah, we got her. We get a couple Barclay episodes. I think we get 2.
Yeah.
I
think the rest of you like Barclay more than me.
I'm mostly ambivalent. Like, I like him as a side character. I'm not a huge fan of the ones that center on him, though.
What I love most about Barclay is we're on this ship. There should be more recurring people like Barclay and Roe, but because it's a TV show, it doesn't matter. I like what Scrubs does with the extras is that they keep them around long enough. We get more of that in Deep Space Nine because they consciously were like, this is a space station. People live here. We're not just transferring people in the Federation. So I like that aspect a little bit more, but I wish Next Gen did it. Somebody said after the episode Second Chances, they should have kept Thomas around just so that you could put Frakes in a different uniform for background stuff. Just see Thomas there every once in a while.
I think there's another episode with Thomas Riker, isn't there, in season 7? I can't remember.
Deep Space Nine.
Oh, Deep Space Nine, that's what
Yes.
it is. Okay.
To be continued when we go into our Deep Space Nine portion of this series, which will be moderated by Nick.
Woohoo!
I'm very excited for this
we're not far
changeover.
away from it, so...
We're not. I'm very excited for the changeover. I'm tired. I want to be a panelist. I'm very excited for that. But yes, Thomas Riker comes back on Deep Space Nine, not on The Next Generation, which I'm okay with because I don't like that plot development. It's weird. I don't like it.
It was very much like Castaway before Castaway happened, where, like, he waited for her, and then, like, she's like, sorry, I moved on, which makes sense, but she didn't even know, but it's just, it was so, like, I don't know. I got a little longing to see Tom Hanks and Helen Hunt and that movie.
Yeah, it is a little different just because, Tom Hanks wasn't a double back on land.
That's true. But the way he said it, it's the only thing that got me through. It was thinking about you, and I don't know. It's
Yeah,
fine.
and she moved on from him because he moved on from her, just the one that got transported out.
Yeah, all of the arbitrary, we can't be together on the same ship even though we're secretly pining for each other all the time anyway. So...
He kind of dumped her. I mean, not really, but, like, he kind of dumped her, and then poor Thomas is like, why are we not together? I mean, I thought that was interesting.
But then he dumped her again.
Yeah.
He made the same choice as Thomas Riker.
Yeah, I mean, I think she kind of helped him make that choice. But... And then she holds hands with Will at the end. I'm like, what is going on here?
Secret pining! Arbitrary apartness!
They're in love and they end up together and they make pizzas on their own planet.
That's right.
They have
And
two
have
kids.
kids.
Or 3.
2 kids.
2.
Yeah.
They're just way too obsessed with pizzas.
Look, if you could build your own wood fire oven on your own planet, you might be obsessed with pizzas too. But that is a spoiler for Picard, which we are not covering today.
Oh man, if it's a spoiler that a character eats pizza, then that's pretty weak.
I was saying, that's the big shocking surprise of the Picard series that you don't want us to spoil.
I said a spoiler, not the spoiler. I think everybody needs to calm down.
I was going to say, I have no idea what this pizza thing is, so I mean...
See, now
it's
poor
a spoiler
Michael.
in my book because I haven't seen Picard yet.
There's it's not a plot device. They just eat pizza. It's okay.
Yeah, I know, but I'm like, okay, I still have no idea.
Does anybody want pizza now? Because I kind of...
I was going to say, the pizzas he was making looked pretty good.
Wood fire pizza is delicious, but this is way far off the topic.
I will talk about my favorite episode. Obviously, anybody that knows me, Relic. But I will say, this is absolutely I hate Geordi in this episode so much. He is such a jerk to Montgomery Scott, a living legend, who has saved the galaxy how many times?
And the whale.
Spare 5 minutes to show him around a ship, and he's treating him like some doddering old man. Like, he is such a jerk in that episode. And it breaks my heart when Scotty goes on the recreation of his Enterprise, and it's a beautiful moment, and they did an amazing job building that set, but I just want to strangle Geordi that whole episode.
Did you feel like Geordi's writing was a little more inconsistent this season? I didn't feel like we got some of the typical Geordi things, and then when we did see him, I don't know, it seemed just different.
Well, that's like, he seemed out of character in that episode to me, because he's much more, like, almost aggressive and, like, short-tempered.
I would say impatient. I don't know about aggressive, but he's definitely impatient with Scotty, and I think it is a little bit out of character because I think that given some of the past things that we've had to put up with watching with Geordi, like his love affair with the hologram and some of the other things, it seems a little bit hypocritical of him to be so impatient with Scotty. But the dialogue of that episode is all about aging and remaining relevant as you age. I don't know who the other mouthpiece could be in relationship to Scotty when you're talking about chief engineer of one Enterprise and chief engineer of this Enterprise. I didn't know who else could be the mouthpiece and have that relevant conversation, which is what the episode was going for.
Yeah, but I think you could have done that without Geordi being flat out rude.
Yeah. And
like, things could have happened.
I think he'd be like somewhat of a hero. I mean, in the Star Trek world, he invents transwarp beaming, and he's like responsible for all these ship design changes. You'd think he'd be a little bit more hero-struck, but really it's Picard that actually shows more caring for him than Geordi, and that just seemed weird to me when you consider the canon of the series.
I mean, Geordi was up to his old self during the episode Aquiel, where he gets way too involved with this random girl's personal logs and then creeps her out by, like, saying, oh, yeah, your sister, and, Geordi, take 5, buddy.
That's going to appear on one of my lists because, yeah, Geordi is... Samesies. Yeah, Geordi, I would agree with the assessment, Sarah, that he is all over the place this season, and I'm not sure why that is.
I mean, also, like look at him with Zephram Cochrane in First Contact versus, like, that's how he should have acted. Like, that was better writing for the character. That made sense. Like, if you're meeting somebody who's a technological genius from the past that you grew up learning about, you'd think you'd have more relevance. But don't get me wrong, I love that episode. That's just my own little quibble because Geordi didn't feel like he was acting in character to me.
What else you got for general commentary on season 6, if anything?
I was reading that this season seems to be the producers, Ronald D. Moore, and the other writers were trying to experiment more because they felt like they had their, I don't know what the word would be, but they just had they had something apparently that I can't think of the word. They experimented a lot this season, and I think there's a lot of interesting episodes that come out of it because of that. Also, seems to like they wanted to save a lot of money this season because there's a lot of 2-parters that started out as single episodes. That's a good thing? I don't know. Maybe it is.
Not sure to what effect Deep Space Nine going at the same time had, but I think Deep Space Nine was the one. I only know one anecdote that would support this, but they seem to have more money than Deep Space Nine at this point because Deep Space Nine needed a runabout, so they couldn't afford to finish the runabout model, and that's why Next Gen has one in the episode Timescapes because they used their budget to finish it. So they had to use it in an episode.
Yeah,
to justify that.
Yeah, this is the season that Deep Space Nine premieres separately. I believe that it also goes into first run syndication, and they were starting to
January.
Yeah, it was mid-season, but they were starting to balloon the universe at this point. This was Rick Berman's big project. Everybody talks about it. And because of that, I think there was a little bit I think that actually plays into some of the experimentation you see on Next Gen a little bit. I also think that's why some things feel a little bit more scattered, because they divided the writers up, basically. Some people went to DS9, some people stayed on Next Gen. I think that kind of shows a little bit, not in a heavy way, but enough that that's probably why we see what we see and get what we get.
Yeah,
And they also at this point know that they're going to be launching Next Generation into the movies.
Yeah.
This is where they're starting to write the scripts with the Next Generation crew, so a lot of their focus is starting to shift towards that area, and like, how are we going to go from the show to that? So I don't know how big of an effect they would have had, but this is definitely where they were starting the pre-production on the scripts and everything for Generations.
which I think was a nightmare of a process. Because
It was. They went through hundreds of scripts.
They were trying so hard to do both full casts for that first movie, the original series cast, and I think they did a lot before they got down to just like, well, Shatner will be in it a bit, and then the other two will have a cameo, and that's it.
I mean, it was originally going to be very large, very grand, so they were putting a lot of thought and a lot of work into it.
I'm sure this will be on somebody's list, but I think one of the two-parters that shows they kind of didn't need 2 parts for was the Birthright two-parter.
Yes. I feel like you're either all going to really love this episode or hate it. I don't think anybody's going to be lukewarm on it, so let's hear it. You probably know how I feel.
It's on one of my lists, and I like it. I agree that maybe it didn't need to be 2 parts. However, what they do in the 2 parts is satisfying enough. I had a really hard time picking favorites out of this season, because there are a lot of single episodes that I really, really liked, but it was a matter of breaking a tie, so I have a really big tie at 3. I'm just going to warn you now, and I only have 1 honorable mention, because I was like, I don't know what to pick for this one. It's very clear, but what I liked about Birthright was the mystery. You know, it sets it up really well, the possibility that Moog could maybe still be alive, or that Worf has some sort of conduit to find him, and of course that doesn't feel like it could be true, but then he finds this weird settlement of Klingons and Romulans coexisting, which kind of breaks a little bit of the Star Trek conventions, and I think that's fun. I didn't really love the weird romance between him and the daughter figure, but I did enjoy the conversation, the political conversation that comes with that episode, and it gave Michael Dorn some chance to stretch his acting chops a little bit. I thought he did a great job, so I like them a lot. I anticipate you don't, but that's okay.
It just was too long for me. It just, I needed it to be shorter. I think I would have really liked it if it wasn't 2 episodes, but it just got really long, and then the Romulan people got really mean at the end, and I was like,
they're Romulans. They're always mean.
No, but their whole premise was like, we're going to coexist with these people. We don't have a choice. I didn't want them to die, but then they just, I don't know. It just got to be too much at the end, and
they wanted to coexist, but by their rules. That's
right.
That's the whole point.
I did like that we got James Cromwell before he was Zephram Cochrane. That was fun. I don't remember his name. He was the little guy with the ship. And
the pilot, you know.
Yeah.
He was a Uridian.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Who, do we ever see them again?
Mm-hmm.
Deep Space Nine, I think.
On Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that makes sense, because that's where they were when he approached him. So, that was...
I will say that one, is... I normally really love the Worf Klingon stuff, but I had to, look that one up again, because I didn't remember it that well, so... It's clearly not, I would definitely rate the later episode, the Rightful Heir episode, much higher than that in terms of Klingon episodes.
The other thing that is a negative for me in Birthright is that the first part, there's more to like, and then they drop all the things I really liked about the first part. I wanted to explore more with Data. I loved that they were at Deep Space Nine. I love seeing Picard and Crusher walking on the promenade, and I love seeing Bashir in engineering on the Enterprise. I want more of that, because with these 3 shows that happened, we don't get a lot of crossover at all, and this is it for Next Gen. I mean, even when we get Riker, it's Thomas Riker on Deep Space Nine. So
I absolutely agree with you on that, Nick. The first segment of Birthright is much better, because it is kind of the split between Data exploring, quote, his family, and Worf exploring his family. And then you've got, Dr. Julian Bashir, who I enjoy on the Deep Space Nine. He's one of my favorite characters. So it's a fun kind of triple action piece that you get, but then it's all the Klingons and Romulans in part 2, so that does get to be a little bit more tedious, but I didn't know how to split that up, and I didn't want to say, I just like Birthright Part 1.
This may not be the place to talk about this, so I apologize, and if you want to edit it out, I completely understand. Have you all heard about the rumor going around that there might be a Marvel, that Star Trek might be going the way of Marvel and doing kind of like a mixed universe kind of thing?
No.
I mean, essentially they already are.
Yeah.
They've already been doing that with Discovery and the New Worlds, and then things in Picard. Like, they have points that all connect now.
Yeah, those shows just haven't... The big things are the shows that haven't started yet, but there's definitely...
Well, if you look at how Picard connects to the 2009 Star Trek movie, like, you can tell they're already building that universe and one event affecting another.
Picard and Discovery also, it seems like they definitely wanted these two shows, even though separated by so much time, either past or future, depending on which season.
I mean, even Discovery, you have them purposely connecting to a plot in Enterprise in their third season. Like, every season of Discovery, they connect to essentially a different version of Star Trek. In the third season, they connect heavily with something from Enterprise I don't want to spoil. But yeah, you can tell they really want everything. They want it to be a very rich, filled-in timeline.
They connect to TOS, too, and then, we're off track here.
Yes,
I thought Michael was going to ask us to comment on the rumor that LeVar Burton might be the new host of Jeopardy. So my dad and stepmom asked me about that. They're like, "You like Star Trek? Is he?" I'm like, "They don't call me. I don't know." Great.
It should be him. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, we all vote for him if they're asking.
But
if Dr. Oz can do it, well.
Agreed. I was just going to say, though, you are foreshadowing to the Discovery portion of our series, which Michael will be moderating.
And I'm watching it now to get a jump on actually having a good handle on the moderating job.
I have every faith and confidence in each of your abilities. And I'm looking forward to taking some time away from the moderating microphone, as I often do.
When it comes to moderating Star Trek, it's infinite diversity and infinite combination.
That's right. Ah, that gives me the feels.
An episode I really did not like, which on paper, based on the plot, it should be one that I would love. It's like, I'm literally the person to be geared towards, but I really do not like A Fistful of Datas.
I didn't either.
Really?
The comedy falls... The only thing that works in that episode is Troy.
Agreed.
That's Troy is great in that episode, but Worf as like a completely disinterested parent, and then like Geordi and Data connecting his brain to every single subsystem on the Enterprise is like, what did you think was going to happen? It just seems like something an engineer and a very smart android would know would not go well.
I just want to write it on the calendar that Kyle said he didn't like an episode featuring Data, but liked Troy in that episode.
I mean,
it's pretty hilarious, and I mean, I love seeing Marina Sirtis like just absolutely have fun with Troy playing the part of a Western badass with a gun, and I think it's just so funny when I love that scene where she walks into the holodeck and surprises Worf, and Alexander's like, I hope you don't mind, I asked Counselor Troy to join us. And she's just got that ridiculous southern drawl, and she's got the gun and everything. It's just so great to see. I feel like Marina Sirtis really was happy to do that episode because
it seems like she's having a lot of fun.
Yeah. On that note, I would say as a general thing for this season is I feel like Marina Sirtis in general gets a lot of meatier things to do this season. And not just the fact that, she has to wear, or she's told to wear a uniform, but like just in general, her character is doing a lot more this season, and there's a lot of centric episodes where she's a really important part, it seems like, which I'm happy about because, yeah, she's one of my favorite characters. So I don't know if it was something that they were just, that's part of the experimentation where it's like, oh, hey, we need to give her something more to do, or I don't know if it's something that she fought for and eventually won or what, but it was a nice change of pace to see that they actually gave her a lot to do.
I think they...
Go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, I think they were doing a good job of spreading it out with the whole cast of who's what. Again, this is the smallest the cast has been for a while since Wesley's gone. Because there were a couple of times it's like, wow, this is a lot of Picard-centric episodes. Wow, this is a lot of Riker-centric episodes. But they just took turns, and I think we get fewer of my favorite type of episode, and that's like, here's the whole crew working on a cause and effect situation or a disaster. We only get like 2 of those this season.
Yeah, it does feel very like every episode is very like very, very specific character, and then we move on to the next character and the next plot.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say
We're
that
always spaced out. I feel like we got like 2 Rikers in a row. Nick and I were like, what? Why are we doing Riker again?
I was going to say I think there was a conscious and deliberate effort to split out the stories for all 7 of the main cast. Now, did they rotate them well? I don't know. That's a different question. But I agree with Nick. I think that they did not focus so much on entire ensemble episodes, which may also be a little bit why I like this season somewhat less, because I think it's the ensemble episodes that we all gravitate to more, but then there are some really good feature vehicles for some of the characters as well, like Chain of Command, like some of the other ones. I think that we're able to see and that the cast gets more chance to play as individuals, and that's kind of fun also in its own right when it works. Doesn't always work, but when it works.
Yeah.
I
don't know if they're listening to DC Fontana more or what, because it does seem... I know she was an advocate for getting Troy into a uniform and was opposed to what they made Jerry Ryan wear on Voyager. So it doesn't strike me that you get Beverly in Chain of Command, like being an expertise, using her expertise, Troy in Face of the Enemy, Beverly in Suspicions, like being a scientific diplomat, like showing them being more well-rounded characters. Yeah, and I don't know if it's just the show getting to a point where they're not getting noted as much so they can do more. I don't know.
I just think they were I think this is a shift in the production team. I mean, by this time, Gene Roddenberry had passed away. Like I mentioned earlier, Rick Berman is at the helm of the whole franchise and is trying to push it through development of DS9 as spin-off sequel, through the films, as we've already mentioned. I think there was just a lot of experimentation is a good word. I think they were trying things out, and season 6 is really where they were doing that. I think we return more to an ensemble format in season 7 because they know it's the last one. And so they start to throw everything kind of at those episodes in a way. But in season 6, it really is just about playing around with different concepts, ideas, stories, characters. And they're doing the same thing on Deep Space Nine. Although with Deep Space Nine, it's a different setting. So they're focusing, I think, their ensemble storytelling more over there with the station and forming that cast and getting that one up and running. I don't know. I think it's probably my third to the least favorite of the 7 Star Trek seasons of Next Generation is season 6 just because of this, but I don't blame them for trying. I think it's good. I think it gives people, a chance to stretch. I think each of the actors, with the possible exception of LeVar Burton, because we've already talked about the fact that they didn't quite service that character so well, but everybody got a chance to stretch their muscles this season, and I think that was fun to watch by itself.
There's a couple episodes that aren't on either of my list that I think we should talk about, but I don't want to knock them off other people's lists, so I don't know where we want to go.
I think we want to start talking about episodes, quite frankly, because I think we're in a natural spot to do that.
All right.
So who would like to start? We're going to start, of course, with the worst, because we always like to end on a good note, so...
I'll go first.
Okay. Okay, Kyle.
Okay, so I already talked a little bit about my least favorite, and that's Fistful of Data's
Oh, that's your least favorite. That's your worst episode of the
That's
6th.
my worst episode.
Wow.
As a fan of like Sergio Leone westerns, it just felt it didn't feel like a loving tribute. It just felt cheesy. And Data, like I love him as an actor, but a lot of that was creepy. Just him being every character in there, like saloon girls and yeah. My second least favorite is Man of the People.
I was gonna say points to Brent Spiner though for playing all those different versions of.
With a terrible southern accent for his villain.
Look, man.
I get it though. I mean, he's supposed to be that cheesy mustache twirling.
Correct.
But still, my second worst favorite is Man of the People, which is where that guy's kind of using Troy. He's using her abilities to get what he wants. Like you guys were saying, there's a lot of really good, strong Troy episodes, but that one I feel like did her a big disservice. And like when you have all these other episodes where she's being interesting and strong, and then you have somebody using her, and yeah, it was just very unsettling. I did not like that episode at all. And I know a lot of people love this one, but I don't like Time's Arrow very much. It's
No? Yeah.
part of it is for one, I'm not a huge, Samuel Clemens fan.
In general, you don't like Mark Twain?
I do not. I hate the fact that he hates Jane Austen. If you've ever read what he's written about Jane Austen, he's a jerk. He had a lot of progressive views, but he was a huge jerk about women writers, and it rubs me the wrong way. So whenever I can't think of that, when I can't separate that.
Hashtag Kyle has spoken.
Well, that and the time travel in an episode doesn't work with the time travel in a single other version of Star Trek, where if you go to the past, it affects it and it branches off. In this one, if you go to the past, you are essentially supposed to go to the past and it will be a loop. But that's not how time travel works in a single version of any of the time travel episodes in Star Trek. Which I know it's a bit nerdy to get into that, but I didn't like it.
I do want to mention that I've been watching Big Bang Theory for the first time now, and that felt a little Sheldon. Okay, continue.
I'm sorry, but because I really love the time travel episodes, and they're very consistent in how they do time travel in most of these series. And I love that. I love that they have very specific rules for how this universe works. And so when there's an episode that kind of like, we're going to wiggle around that, it just sticks out in my head. Number 4 was Rascals, which I did mention. It's another transporter where they get turned into little kids. It just felt hokey.
I like that one. Aww.
You know what's bad about that one is they ADR'd over young Guinan's voice. And it's really hard. It's not done well. Like, you can tell that's not that girl talking. And it wasn't done well, I don't think.
No. That episode is cringeworthy to me, so. And then I put Chain of Command. You're supposed to not like Jellicoe. Ronnie Cox is a great actor, and he's great as villains. But him against Riker is like an anti-Picard. I hate watching him, and I don't know, that stuff, it didn't work very well for me. I like the stuff with Picard better in the Cardassians, but I wasn't a big fan of the first part where it's mostly Jellicoe versus Riker.
Wow, Kyle and I don't agree about anything this time.
I knew that would happen too as soon as you mentioned that. I would like to point out that's my number 5 worst episode. It's not so much that I hate it, it's just a lot of these other episodes I just like more.
A lot of mine overlap you, Kyle, so I'll go next.
Oh boy.
My number 3 least was Fistful of Datas. I just think it's fine. It just goes on too long, and you're right, it's like creepy, and I don't know. And my number 2 was Man of the People. I do not like that episode very much. And once again, we have poor victim Deanna. And my number 1 least favorite of this season was Aquiel. I just think it is so cringeworthy and at times downright boring, and I just do not care for it. So those are mine.
We're just doing 3, right?
Kyle did 5.
Which episode was Aquiel again?
That was the one where Geordi's on the planet and he finds the recordings of the woman that he later finds and decides...
Someone is murdered, but they don't know who yet.
It's like a changeling, but not.
And she's a terrible actress. This woman is not good at her job.
Yeah, Nick, didn't you say they were like looking at her to maybe be a new character, and then after this episode they were like, no.
They wanted her to come back on the Enterprise and be a love interest for Geordi, but they jumped ship.
That was a right call. She was not good. They had zero chemistry, and Yeah, this one's going to be on my list. Very creepy setup. That would not have been a good call. Good call, Star Trek
Half of
Nerders.
it is just Geordi watching her diary. Like, ugh.
And her wigs and stuff, I don't care.
Yeah, it got it. Yeah, no, thank
Do
you.
you remember this one now, Kyle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember now why I skipped it in my rewatch.
The premise was really interesting in a way, like, oh, there was a shapeshifter in the mystery part, but it just was not written or executed
But
very well.
then it turned out to be the alien dog.
I know, it was a dog. That's rude.
It's just dumb.
These dogs got it.
Hashtag dumb. It's probably going to be on my bottom 10, not going to lie.
Oh, I'm sure it'll end up on mine. Yeah, I just... Ugh.
Are you done, Sarah?
Yeah.
I can go next.
Okay.
Before I get to my bottom three, I will say I agree with you, Kyle, on Chain of Command. I think they write Riker poorly and Jellicoe poorly in the mashup, and neither of them is right. They're just both whiny and stubborn.
Yeah, they were just like butting heads to butt heads, and
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I always struggle with, there's only one person that can pilot a shuttle in this mission, and it's this person.
And it was like they wanted you to hate Jellicoe for doing any changes or improvements, but that's like his job is to come in and be like, I think it would work better this way. I mean, he was kind of a jerk, but he's still your boss, so just do it.
He was real rude to Deanna, though.
Yeah, he was.
He was a jerk to a lot of people. That's not why the episodes are good. I see I'm going to have to fight for them.
No.
Yep.
You can fight, but...
1, 2, 3. Fisticuffs.
It's not in my bottom three. My third bottom three was Jesus Clone. I mean, Rightful Heir. Where they bring what's-his-face back.
Kalis.
That's on my
Kalis.
Yeah.
It does.
Clone
It's
Life.
not on my list, but it would be in my bottom half for sure.
Wait, I'm sorry. Which episode was it?
Where Worf
It's
has
called
to
Rightful
go
Heir. You guys could tell them the one I picked.
That's where Kalis comes back, but
Worf
Oh,
has
okay.
to go.
yeah,
his
the one of
spiritual
the warrior
journey.
upon which all Klingon culture is essentially based, and they make a clone of him as like a figurehead.
Okay, yes. I'm sorry. I didn't catch the name that you had said, so...
Yeah,
I
Rightful
apologize.
Heir.
Rightful Heir. But there's some things I mean, it's not horrible. It was just boring. But I do like that, like, Kalis is like, we can fight and it could just be fun. We don't have to kill each other. You've taken religion too far. Weird.
That and it's not on my list, but the part that sort of bent me out of shape a little bit was the Gowron versus the religious sect piece. It's like, okay, I don't understand why this guy would upend everything unless you admitted that he was the actual Kalis, and then why would you want to do that? And the story got so wound up on itself that by the end of the episode, you were like, I don't even care. The Klingon Empire is doomed. I don't even care.
I don't think anyone cares. I think they mention that clone of Kalis once in the however many seasons Worf is on Deep Space Nine.
Hey, there's an important episode where they're looking for his Batleth.
Yeah, but it's not
Great
the
episode.
clone's Batleth.
Yeah, but they're going to give it to the clone, and essentially it's going to fix Klingon culture.
Which they broke
Okay, we'll talk
in this
about
So
that.
this episode's in my top list because I like the Klingon stuff and I like that. So, yes, I'm defending it a little more than I should be.
Ooh, we're spicy. We're not agreeing on anything this time. Very exciting.
It's a weird twist.
Yeah.
It's a season 6 twist. No, we're agreeing on something because I agree with Kyle and Sarah that Man of the People is there a wheel they spin that it sometimes lands on? What can we do to make Troy unbearable? Like, and a victim, but you also hate her. Like, she just goes crazy in it. Like, it reminded me of The Lost and any other time.
Isn't this the one where she ages inappropriately, or was that last season? Yeah.
She gets
because he's like sucking the worst life force out of her, and again, it's like he's violating her without like downright violating her, but that's what they're indicating.
Yeah, which then they do again in Nemesis.
Yes.
And
Didn't work here, it didn't work in Nemesis. Just
Leave it.
Leave
They
Troy
already
alone.
did it with the species that brings back memories. They did it not to a violation standpoint, but that the guy who was negotiating for the wormhole, when she loses her powers, she just goes crazy. It's like she's the most unstable person on the ship, and it's just bad writing for her.
I agree with all of the things except for you saying she's unbearable. I know that she gets annoying, but it's not her fault. She's being violated again.
I know. I'm not blaming the character. I'm blaming the writers.
Okay.
Well, and then, like, at the end of the episode, nobody's like, are you okay? They just like, okay, let's get back to work, Troy. Like...
Yeah.
I know, I at least needed somewhere along the line somebody counseling Counselor Troy, because she goes through a lot of trauma.
Mm-hmm. And she's helping a lot of people deal with trauma between Picard's board. Yeah, never mind. And then my other one is, my least favorite of the season is Aquiel, for all the things you said.
My bottom three. My least favorite is it's a very boring bottom three. I'm sorry. Man of the People is my sorry, I went in the wrong order. Shoot, spoilers. My 3 and 2. This might be considered a bit of a cheat. Birthright Part 2 and Birthright Part 1.
You can do whatever you want.
Okay. I skipped Birthright Part 2 because I was so bored by Birthright Part 1 that I was just like, I don't want to put myself through the second part of this episode. I didn't like the first part because I find, of all the things to make Data a step closer to human and more well-rounded character who is blossoming and blooming, I feel like the worst thing that they could have done was to say, and now he dreams. It's just like, really? That's what you came up with? I mean, I know it kind of, sort of, there's another episode later on where the dreaming thing comes back, but it was just like, I don't know, and then pairing that with the Worf story, it was just, I get the connection, but I was bored with the episode, and I didn't think the dreaming aspect of Data's storyline worked. It didn't seem like they understood the mechanics of dreams and the way, I guess dreams are different in Android, obviously, so I guess it doesn't have to be, the exact way that dreams work in reality, but I don't know. So I didn't like it because I was bored, and I didn't like the way that they made Data a step closer to humanity with the dreaming part. I don't think it really added anything to his character because it doesn't really, I just don't think it added him as a progression towards what he wanted, whether it be emotions or his quest for humanity. And yeah, so that's why I put those there. And Man of the People is my worst favorite of the season because what they do to Troy is just an abomination. And it's just so sad that they kept mind raping that poor woman in this show. Yes, she's one of my favorite characters, and of course I feel for her for that, but it's just really, and of course equating the idea of aging being such a terrible, horrible thing that she's going to, apparently Betazids when they age are going to turn into these weird harpies or something. So yeah, so that's my least favorite. And I just didn't think the guy was a very intimidating villain either. He was a negotiator that needed to suck the life force out of these women in order to be a good negotiator. Talk about toxic masculinity. So yeah, those are my bottom three.
Wow, I don't agree with number 2, but it's going to be fine. I'll get to that when I get to my favorite lists. I guess I'll go to my least favorite list, which thankfully almost all of them have been mentioned, except for my most favorite of the least favorite, or number 3, which is Second Chances. I hate the Thomas Riker spin. I agree with Kyle's earlier assessment that there are far too many transporter accidents in this season. That one was one too far. I don't appreciate that he becomes this extra thing out in the universe that then comes back later. I find it weird. It might not have been as weird if they had used him more, but since they basically created him, shipped him off, forgot about him for a while, brought him back on a different series, shipped him off again, I could have done without it. And the whole thing was just extra complication to the Troy and Riker thing, which by this time it's like, just in the will they or won't they, we know you will! So just do it. Make like Nike and just do it. All of it. Just do it. So I didn't like Second Chances. I wanted to, but I recalled not liking it very much even on my first watch when I was but a teenager, because I thought, this is just not right. There should not be two Rikers. I have strong feelings. My second to the least favorite is Aquiel, for all the reasons that we said. Terrible actress. Terrible story. Very boring. Why the dog? Come on. There's not many dogs on Star Trek. Then they make him an evil shapeshifter dog and they kill him. It's very sad. And then finally, Man of the People. Because not only all of the things that we have already mentioned, but it's starting to get lazy at this point that they're constantly subjecting Troy to this. And I immediately thought to myself, well, this is Violations all over again, only now she's just getting old. And that's no fun. Harpy's a little strong. I was thinking crone.
Sorry, poor choice of words.
I mean, poor Deanna. It's not her fault. But geez, yeah, that one was pretty much... I instantly wrote it down as number one when we came back to that episode on rewatch. I just thought, oh my God. Now that I'm watching this back to back to back to back and counting how many times this happens to her, by this time it's not cool, and you think they would have evolved beyond that, but they didn't, and it's probably going to be, I don't know, this one and Violations are probably going to land pretty squarely in my bottom 10, not going to lie, because it's appalling. Okay, so now we go into the bests. Oh my gosh, no one's going to agree with me. But I didn't like Cause and Effect when everybody else liked Cause and Effect. So let's see I liked it. It was in my top, but not. Anyway, let's see what you say for your most favorite season 6 episodes. Who would like to begin?
Oh, I can go if no one.
Nick, you spoke, you go. Do it.
Okay, I'm going to start with an honorable mention, but I do like Time's Arrow Part 2 and a season that's pretty devoid of the gang doing hijinks type things. I enjoy the stupid moments of pretending they're in a play because they can't afford room and board for Mrs. Carmichael. I like the Guinan stuff, and I like Jerry Hardin's cartoonish portrayal of Mark Twain. It's just fun. But that's just the honorable mention. My third favorite, number 3, is Tapestry.
Yes.
Remind us. I don't remember.
Oh, man. It is the one where Picard dies and Q is gone. And then he goes back in time and...
With the...
Jot human. Yeah, Nausicaans.
You know what they are?
Nausicaans, yeah. Picard gets to relive the choice he made to fight the Nausicaans, decides not to do it, and finds out it's basically Star Trek's answer to It's a Wonderful Life.
This is the season of uniform swapping. We get a gold Riker, we get a red Data, and we get a science blue Picard, and we get Troy in a uniform. And she doesn't change uniform, but Beverly is the captain of the Enterprise for a brief moment.
Which excited you, I'm sure. Okay, and you like Tapestry because it's good backstory for Picard. It's interesting pivot for Q. It's an aspect of Q we kind of sometimes see, but he always pulls the carpet under. And even Picard is like, I can't help but thinking of that as a favor. And it really, I think, lends credence to why is this omnipotent being so fascinated with humans and this group of humans. And I think it helps even bridge the gap more to him basically needing humanity's help for the Q continuum. So it, in a small way, it's not intentionally trying to show this too much. It's more focused on Picard. But I like the aspects of Q while he's still being Q-y, and I like the Picard moments. So yeah, Tapestry. Classic. My number 2 is basically the writers and production team hitting us over the head with Star Trek's mission, and that's the chase.
Like we are all together. We are all one in this universe where we meet Salome Jens plays that bald alien that leaves the message in the DNA to try to get humanoids to work together. And then they're like, hey, she does a good job speaking weird with a bald head. Let's bring her back as the female changeling in Deep Space Nine many times. And they look the same. But so I like that one. We get Picard being an archaeologist and him literally being like, no, we're going to go do this other thing, Riker. We're not going to our mission. They can wait. And then my favorite one, I really liked Timescape. I like where they're on the runabout, Picard, Troy, Geordi, and Data, and they start having weird time issues, and then they find what may or may not be a firefight between Romulan, Warbird of Prey, just kidding, and the Enterprise. I really enjoyed those moments, and I like the time aspect. So yeah, Timescape. Those are my top 3.
Oh, we're going to be all over the place.
Yeah, I can go next. I only share one with you, but I would like to give honorable mention to the quality of life.
Thank you.
But just because I think it adds to the conversation of what makes something a sentient being or a person. That's the one where they're at that space station and the gal scientist, that sounded anti-feminist. The woman
The
has
female
developed
scientist.
these, I don't know, someone help me. What is she? She makes these
nanobots, I think is
nanobots.
What?
They're not robots, but they're
Exocomps.
exocomps. That's it.
they can fix things and they're really good at adapting, but she basically considers them disposable and expects them to die when like the plasma thing happens and whatever. And then Data's like, why are you not thinking they're real? And it's kind of it's part of that continued conversation that continues through some of the other series. So I really like that one. My third place, I just had to reread what this is. Schisms, but
Schisms?
yeah, somebody say it right then. I don't care. Like,
Schisms.
there you go. That's what it is. And it's the one where Riker thinks he can't sleep and he doesn't know why. And they're all being, like, affected in different ways and, it like, experimented on. And they're being I don't know why I like it. It reminds me of the Voyager episode where they're all being experimented on. So maybe that's why I like it. But I enjoyed it. My second place was Starship Mine, which is Die Hard in Space. Because it's kind of horror movie-ish. And I enjoyed that without being gory because, I can't handle that kind of thing. But I do like the scariness of it, and I really liked what was happening on the ship. I also liked what was happening on the station then, where they were figuring out what was happening, and they were having to work together to kind of assess the situation and distract the people and do all the things. And my favorite is Timescape. I said this to Nick the other day, but what a great group of people that they put together there with Troy and Geordi and Data and Picard. I thought that was the right people to pick for that. And I really liked how that one also scared me because the person came to life, and I knew something, and I said to Nick, somebody's gonna come alive, and I couldn't remember. Not alive, but she was faking being frozen, and
Right?
I thought that was an interesting premise of the.
There was 2 of them.
Yeah.
There were 2 of them. Yeah, the lady and then the guy. There was a guy too.
And they might not be gendered in that species. They just look like a male and a female Romulan.
I think
They
they
were
are
played
gendered.
by a female actress and a male actress because they were inhabiting. Whatever. I really don't feel very well. Sorry, listeners. They were played by a female and a male, and they were in Romulan bodies, but they weren't the right people. So that was my favorites. Do with it as you will.
I guess we will.
So, for my top 3, let's see. I'm having trouble with this one, so I guess I'll just start with, I think I'm going to do Chain of Command Part 1 and 2 as an honorable mention. It's really, really close to being one of my favorites of this season. I remember this episode from when I was a kid, or these episodes from when I was a kid. But I remember part 1 more than part 2 for some strange reason. And I remember that I almost said Admiral Jellicoe. Okay, there's a reason why. Because Jellicoe comes back in the tie-in novels, and he becomes an admiral, and he causes a lot of great deal of trouble as an admiral, so that's why I almost called him Admiral Jellicoe. I apologize, listeners. Anyway, Captain Jellicoe, I remember watching the dynamic there, and I always hated him as a kid. But it's funny how now that I'm an adult, I see, and I've just read a bunch of stuff about the episode and about what they were trying to do with the character. I'm starting to realize it's like, oh wait, no, the whole point of his character was to stir things up and kind of just make the Enterprise better. And even though everyone hated him on the Enterprise, it is funny that he's just there because he's like, no, this is the way I do things, and this is the way that I'm very by the book, and there's nothing wrong with being by the book. It's just
Captain
different.
Kirk would disagree.
Look, Captain Kirk is not here now.
You don't add a forward shift when you're on the doorstep of war. Bad leadership.
Just one thing where I feel like we haven't talked about, it's funny that we haven't talked about Part 2 of Chain of Command a lot, because Part 2 almost feels like a completely different episode because it focuses so heavily on Picard's torture by the incomparable David Warren.
Thank you.
Who's one of the amazing character
Warner,
actors
isn't
ever.
it? David Warner?
Has,
Warner.
Yeah.
Sorry, Warner. I apologize. Yes, David Warner. He's such a great actor. I love him, and I love his voice, and anytime he does anything, I'm just, you're awesome. You're great. And he's such a great Cardassian here.
He's a great Klingon, too.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
And he was in Titanic.
Yep, one of my favorite movies.
And that not-so-good Star Trek movie.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, I forget. He's one of the ambassador people on the planet.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to wear alien makeup.
But, I mean, the interplay between David Warner and Patrick Stewart is just great acting. And apparently, I learned a lot about this episode. David Warner was a late addition to the cast of that episode. So he didn't have time to learn his lines. So all of the lines he's delivering are from cue cards. And he's reading over Patrick Stewart's shoulder. And of course, he's just such a great actor. You don't even realize it. You think he's like Shakespeare. So kudos to him for that. Plus, I also learned that apparently it was Patrick Stewart's idea to be stripped naked, and that he insisted on actually doing that scene in the nude himself. Like, actually was like, no, we're not going to fake it. I will do this in the nude, which I thought was like, wow, just a big wow for Patrick Stewart there. So that it's barely, those two episodes are barely a honorable mention for me. I think my number 3 is Face of the Enemy, and I think you pretty much can guess why.
Yeah, remind us of what
What's that?
Remind us of what Face of the Enemy is, because it's the first time.
Face of the Enemy is the episode where Deanna Troi is kidnapped by a Romulan who's a part of the Resistance, who's trying to reunify Romulus with Vulcan, and they kidnap her because they want a Starfleet officer who is also an empath to pose as a member of the Tal Shiar, I think is how you say it, which is sort of a Romulan, I don't know how to describe it, but it's a
Like
sort
their
of
secret service.
Yeah, it's like Black Ops.
Like Section 31 or the Obsidian Order.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, and they're very feared, and so they're on a mission to transport these diplomats who are defecting from the Romulan Empire. And it's just so cool to see Deanna be all badass and take charge. There's a great scene where she's yelling at the Romulan who kidnapped her because she's like, no, you kidnapped me, you've made me part of this mission, so now I'm going to do what I have to do to get this mission, because I do believe in the mission, I just don't believe in the way you went about kidnapping me for obvious reasons. So, but it's just really cool, and I love to see her take charge at the end there where she's playing the long game with the Enterprise being like, I'm going to... it was just so cool. I can't even describe what was going on. And of course, another cool thing, Sarah, you'll appreciate this, but the female Romulan captain was Zoe from Quantum Leap. hint and spoiler for the Quantum Leap episode.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize, and Nick was like, isn't that the evil leaper? And I'm like, no, but she's the Al, right?
Yeah. She's the hologram. Yes, the evil hologram in
I will
Quantum
tell
Leap
you, Michael,
episodes.
I have every reason to not like this episode because I don't usually enjoy Romulans, and I don't always enjoy Deanna's writing, but I actually really do like this one, and I think it was done really well, and it's enjoyable overall.
Yeah, so I was trying to look up the actress's name, I'm sorry, so that I was looking... Oh, Carolyn Seymour is her name.
Yeah,
Who played Commander Toreth, and she's also Zoe on Quantum Leap, and this was apparently also aired roughly around the same time as those 2 Evil Leaper episodes in season 5, so she was doing double duty on TV at that time, which I thought was really cool. But anyway, so that's why Face of the Enemy is my number 3. My number 2 is Relics, because I love Scotty. He's one of my favorite original series characters, and I think this Relics does a really good job of bridging the gap between the original series and the next generation. I think it's one of the best crossovers of the two series, even better than Unification and even better than Bones' appearance and encounter at Farpoint. I think Scotty's incorporation into the series is the best crossover. Plus, I think this is a really good example of how Next Generation does A story and B story structure. Most Next Generation episodes are just one single story, which I'm okay with because that's what I like in my TV. But I think Relics does a really good job of actually their B story, which is they discover... It's kind of a B story, but I think it is. But basically what happens is that they find this weird anomaly in space that turns out to be a Dyson sphere, which if anyone knows what a Dyson sphere is, it's a large planet surrounding a star where people live on the inside of the structure rather than the outside. So they discover their Dyson sphere, and of course Scotty has crash landed on the Dyson sphere like 80 years ago. They revive him. The kid unfortunately dies, but that's really sad, and it really sucks because that would have been kind of interesting. But anyway, the B story of the Dyson sphere is really cool. So I think Relics does a really good job of that, plus the A story of Scotty and his aging and coming to terms with that is just a really nice story to tell on the Next Generation. So that's my number 2. And my absolute favorite episode of the series is... Well, not the series, the season, sorry. Tapestry is my number 1. This is definitely going to be in my top 10. I think it's a brilliant episode. I think, again, spoiler, maybe not the place to talk about this, but it's probably going to be a jumping off point for season 2 of Picard, based on what we know of what's going to happen. I'm sure if you've seen the trailer for season 2, you would know that Q is coming back. And
I watched it!
What?
I watched it in the end.
Okay, good. I'm pretty sure the way that Descent and I, Borg was a jumping off point, and Measure of a Man... No, wait, Measure of a Man? Is that the one with Data? And yeah. All those episodes were jumping off point for season 1 of Picard. I have a feeling Tapestry is going to be a jumping off point for season 2 of Picard. And plus, I just love Q in this episode. One of my favorite jokes growing up when I was a kid, when this episode first aired, was when he comes into the quarters of young Picard, and he's got flowers, and he says, "Hello, flowers for a Jean-Luc Picard." And just the way they keep butchering Picard's name this season made me laugh because I'm a nerd kid, and yes. So that is so many reasons why this episode is my favorite of the season and probably one of my favorites of this series. I just love it.
So Tapestry, I love getting more backstory on Picard, and I love Q, and this is one of their best interactions. I mean, the best villains know the hero better than they know themselves, and this is kind of that. At this point, Q knows Picard better than pretty much anybody alive except for maybe Crusher. So he's the perfect foil, and it's just such a great episode, and it fills in so much with the way Picard is. Number 2, Descent. The idea to pair Lore with the Borg is brilliant. I absolutely love that. I mean, it's my 2 favorite next-gen villains. And putting them together is just great. I love that episode. And then obviously number 1 is Relic for Scotty. Love the next-gen. I love that. And like I said, I love him on the holodeck version of his Enterprise talking to Picard. I just felt like it was a beautiful moment bridging the series, and it works better than the movie that tried to do it. So, yeah.
Awesomely, a lot of mine have already been mentioned except for 2, and a couple of them were mentioned negatively. I have a 6-way tie at number 3. Yes, I can do that. Too bad.
I guess it is season 6.
It is season 6.
That's like 30% of the season.
You say that every time I do this. I don't care. So I have one honorable mention.
It's a fourth of the season.
Yeah. Math it. That's right. 4th. Anyway.
I couldn't remember how many episodes were in this season, so I just rounded up.
Fair enough. I have one honorable mention though, and that's Descent Part 1. For what Kyle just said, I think it was a really interesting way to take a finale with season 6 by putting lore together with the Borg. I don't know that I feel that it lands very well in the season 7 premiere, but we'll talk about that. However, at the time, the season 6 finale was mysterious and very tense, and you're like, oh no, they're together, what could this possibly mean? So that's why it's at an honorable mention, because I don't really love the season 7 premiere, but we'll talk about that in season 7. Okay, my 6-way tie at number 3. The first one is Relics. Scotty. #Scotty. What are you gonna do? It's great. Do I think it's better than the Unifications? No, sorry, Michael, I'm gonna have to dial back on that. Is it better than the Bones cameo? Well, yeah, because James Doohan's in the whole episode as opposed to just 5 minutes for DeForest Kelly. Unifications...
Who only interact with Data.
Right. The Unifications was like a whole exploration. This is like putting on an old pair of shoes or an old pair of pants that you really, really love. You get to see him, Jimmy Doohan, and this is shortly before he passed away, a couple years. He appears in Generations, but he doesn't survive very much longer after that, so it's kind of bittersweet. But I think the dialogue with Geordi and Scotty does kind of bring it down a little bit, which is why for me it's number 3. I had True Q. This is when Olivia Diabo, who was the older sister on the Wonder Years, she plays the mysterious Q child who is using powers and she doesn't realize that she's part Q, and then Q comes in to kind of help her. It's a Crusher episode. She forms the strongest bond with Crusher. I think that it's actually very good. It's a good discussion about the omnipotence, and it's kind of revisiting that what do you do when you find out your Q, that temptation piece that we saw earlier with Will Riker, but this time she can't help it. Either she gives up a part of herself that she was born with, or she embraces what her destiny is, and she figures out that she can help. She can do whatever she wants. She can help more than she can hurt. And I think it's really well acted by her, and it was fun to see her at the time because I was a huge Wonder Years fan, so I thought, yay, this is a lot of nostalgia in that one. I like Rascals. I don't care. I think it's fun to see the little guy who actually played his nephew before play the young Jean-Luc Picard and throw a temper tantrum and work with Alexander and be clever about working from, the school on the ship and just all of that piece. Were all of the young kids the best models? No, but I thought they all did a pretty good job trying to channel their adult counterparts. I have a special affection for it, and I don't care. Rascals is fun.
Did it fill the Wesley void for you?
No, it did not fill the Wesley void.
Obnoxious kids. You just seem to love them.
No, that's not true. Stop picking fights. He's not even on the show anymore. And then...
Fun fact, younger version of Guinan is the same actress that played young Dolores in Sister Act.
Awesome! That is a fun fact, and I did not realize that. That makes it even better!
Also, Picard calls Riker his number 1 dad.
Yes! There's a lot of funny jokes in it, and it's not nearly as corny as some of the other corny episodes we got. So I have a special affection for it. Tapestry is tied at 3rd. I would have lifted it higher, but I had a really hard time with picking just one of these, and I love Tapestry. All of the reasons that everybody said. It's to me, a quintessential episode. I think it's a jumping off point for a lot of things, but if it ends up being Picard Season 2's jumping off point, I'm even more excited. Starship Mine is in my 3 multiple tie at 3, Die Hard in Space, because again, more Jean-Luc Picard is great. And he saves the ship, and he hides in the beams, and he's like, turn off the thing, and all the stuff, and he beats up Tuvok. It's real great. And then the quality of life is also in that. I also like the quality of life. This is basically the extension episode of The Measure of a Man, and it's Data picking up that conversation and applying it outward from himself, and I think it's really smartly written. It's really well acted by Brent Spiner, and it raises kind of a recurring theme, not only around Data, but generally speaking about artificial intelligence as a whole in the Star Trek series to follow. And I think that it's very, very enjoyable. It piques the imagination. It makes you think. And I would have rated that one higher too. But again, I was having a real hard time picking these ones. At number 2, I have The Birthrights. Apparently I'm outnumbered here. I like the first one better than the second one. Too bad! I like the first one better than the second one. Sorry, Michael, I don't agree with your assessment on the dreams. I think it was a natural progression, and they explain it very clearly that it's the experiment they're doing with Dr. Bashir that triggers this latent program. So it wasn't even a natural evolution. It's just something that he tried to explore once they found it. And the fact that it was disassociated imagery, and you get to see Dr. Noonien Soong come back, that conversation parallel to Worf's journey. Again, the first part is stronger than the second part. The second part does kind of peter out a little bit by the end. I thought the political dialogue in the second Birthright was good, but where they end it ends up feeling a little anticlimactic. I still put it above these other ones just because I think it was a really fun way that they paralleled 2 of the favorite characters. That's how I was looking at it, because everybody loves Data and everybody loves Worf, and they got to utilize those 2 characters in a very meaningful way, while then also yanking in Deep Space Nine for the hell of it, and that was fun. And finally, at number 1, I have The Chains of Command, where I do agree with Michael that the second part is probably better than the first part, because the second part is pretty iconic, actually. There's a lot of episodes that are synonymous with The Next Generation. You kind of think through The Best of Both Worlds. You kind of think through Darmok. You kind of think through the Unifications. What's the one where they're on the Enterprise C?
Yesterday's.
Yes. All of those are iconic episodes, but so is There Are Four Lights. And it's because of the interplay between David Warner and Patrick Stewart. That is like a Shakespearean play unfolding. The only thing that could have made those scenes better, maybe, is recasting David Warner with Ian McKellen. But Ian McKellen was still working out his film career at that point. It was fine. To me, these are very, very good episodes. I think the fact that Jellicoe and Riker butting heads is meaningful, because what it shows us is that the cast, or by which I mean the crew, has gotten too comfortable. Picard has let them have their way because he trusts them. What they don't see, they're too comfortable, and it continues that dialogue of Riker remaining on the Enterprise when he's clearly destined to be more than just a first officer. It's challenging all of the conventions that we've kind of been built along the way with this Enterprise crew. It's basically saying, and to me, I don't look at the guy as a villain. I look at him as he's just doing his job. He's just coming in here and he's doing his job. He's a new boss and you don't like me and you have to figure out how to work with me, but ultimately I'm the boss. You got to do what I say. If you don't like it, you're free to transfer, go to the brig, or stay in your quarters. And I think that is actually a good dialogue to have, because it has real life application. It happens all the time. People get new bosses. They may like their older boss. They get somebody they don't like as well. They have to learn how to work with them, and eventually they do. Not to mention the fact that we get, for the first time on this series, a really in-depth exploration of the Cardassians, right about the time that they're emerging on Deep Space Nine, which I think was very, very important, because I didn't know who TF the Cardassians were prior to this point, and why I should give a crap about them. But the Chains of Command actually gives you that information and kind of sets them you get both sides. You get the militaristic piece, but then you get the David Warner monologuing about, we're a war-torn society, we've been starving, we've been fighting to survive, and this is the way that we've been doing it, and you may not like that, but that's the way we've been doing it. And it just goes back to how important is the Prime Directive, and I just think there's a lot of really good shades in the Chains of Command. Now, maybe you don't think it's as entertaining as I do, but I really enjoy it, and I think they are my favorites. And I thought about this a really long time because, again, it was hard for me to pick my lists on this season, but iconic is the word that comes to mind. Is it as iconic as some? No, but it's still in the upper echelon of iconic Next Generation episodes, and I have to put it at number 1.
That last exchange between Picard and Deanna in his ready room, where he comes back on board the Enterprise in part 2. First of all, I love the fact that he just literally nods at her and she goes in there and it's just like, how are you feeling? And he just that minor little paragraph where he says, I almost could believe I saw 5 lights, is so devastating. It's such a great final line to that episode.
Well, and to me, it's also building on the fact that he's now more willing to be vulnerable and admit these things. At the end of the Best of Both Worlds, after he is delocutist, he's still struggling with processing that trauma. Here, in Chain of Command Part 2, he is accepting that he's gone through a trauma and he's sitting down with Troy right away. And they're having this talk, very frank talk. And he's being very honest and vulnerable with her. And I think that's a real growth for the character. I think that's an evolution for Jean-Luc Picard. In the same way that Tapestry gives us that glimpse. So I think it's really well written. It's a smart episode. I'm sorry if people don't like it as much as me, but...
Again, like I said,
I
barely not in my top 3, only because I just love the other 3 episodes that much more.
That makes sense. I love the variety, though. We had a lot of variety in our tops this time, which also seems to point to me that this season is solid. There are a lot of solid episodes. Is it a ringer like 3, 4, and 5? Maybe not, but there's a lot of solid things going on where we could be various and have different opinions about a lot of different things.
I actually like all of your episodes that were in your tied for number 3. I loved all those episodes.
The season is aware of itself throughout. Like in Timescapes, Troy uses her knowledge of a Romulan ship. In Descent, Crusher uses the Ferengi shielding from suspicion to protect the Enterprise. Like there are a lot of those little things that they don't really hit you over the head with it. It just happens. And you probably don't even realize it if you're watching it 1 episode a week as it's airing, with a hiatus somewhere in there too. But when you watch it this close together, they really do. Even though they beat you over the head with Spot. He comes up a lot.
But he's so cute.
Sure.
I like Spot. Shenanigans.
I like Spot. It's interesting.
Finer hated Spot, but...
It's interesting you mentioned that, Nick, because I feel like Ronald D. Moore was so desperate for longer story arcs on this show, and I feel like that comes through a lot. And one thing I did notice that I didn't mention in the general comments of the season is that a lot of the episodes resolve really quickly. And there's a lot of I don't know what word to give it, but I just think of a hand gesture of where you just kind of, you wash your hands of it, you just yep, well, that's that. I don't know what the word for that hand gesture is, but...
Washing your hands of it?
I guess, yeah, I mean... but
anyway. Just piloting it?
But in True Q, as an example, she's well, I'm not going to use my powers. I'm going to, because I want to be human. I don't want to use my powers. And literally the moment she walks out of the ready room, she cleans up the planet's atmosphere. Literally seconds later. And that's the end of the episode. Oops, sorry. Guess I used my powers. I'm going to go to the Q continuum now. And it was just ugh. I mean, and again, it was just the convention, the fact that it was an hour episode syndicated, so they couldn't really do a lot of ongoing story arcs because it was syndicated. You never knew what episode was going to come next. So, but because of that, I think the writers, and Ronald D. Moore was part of it, I think he was pushing for longer episode story arcs, but because of that restriction of having to wrap things up in a tight little bow, you get a lot of those washing your hands of it moments. Oh, we never hear of Aquiel ever again.
But that's
Granted,
first of
I'm
all,
happy about that.
Yes, that's good. And also, I think the choice that whatever her name is, I think she's Amanda, makes.
Yeah, Amanda.
Yeah, makes with saving the planet. The people on the bridge that cared about her the most acted that very, very well in response as they watched it happen. Like,
that is true. Yeah.
So they washed their hands of it in a sense, but at the same time, we were given enough emotional resonance that it felt satisfying.
Can I just jump in? I'm going to try to be quick, because we have literally mentioned every episode but 2, and I can't believe the 2 we didn't mention. Picard gets a girlfriend and lessons, and it brings back a lot of... He processes his time from Inner Light, which was an interesting episode, and then Ship in a Bottle. We get Moriarty wrapped up.
That would have been my honorable mention for favorite. I love hologram evil Moriarty.
I like both those episodes, and I just can't believe I'm looking here and we literally have mentioned every other episode.
I just think they would be like squarely in the middle for me. You know, the Moriarty one is fine. I think I liked the first one better, but I'm glad they gave him resolution. And him having the girlfriend and them playing the music was nice, but we all knew where that was going to go because he's married to the ship, not unlike Kirk was married to the ship. That's their one common thread.
And we never see her again.
She transferred because he couldn't handle it when she was in danger. It's clear.
And she blamed him for risking her life. I think we see the little Moriarty box in the crash site of Generations. I think it gets moved in the background by somebody cleaning up. So maybe he survived the crash? I don't know.
What does he care? He's flying in a never-ending hologram. Exploring.
Unless that thing got ruined.
Oh, come on. I'm pretty sure he figures it out at some point.
Yeah.
The man is incredibly smart.
Picard Season 3!
Now, I could be wrong here, but I feel like Ship in a Bottle kind of leads into the invention of the emergency medical hologram in Voyager, maybe? Or am I reading too much into it?
I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. I feel like there's an almost... maybe I've got like a weird... I don't know, never mind. I'll stop talking because my train of thought's not coalescing.
It's at least where they thought... They could have been where they thought they could take it to the next level and make it a cast member, a hologram cast member. But,
I don't know. Never explicitly stated, so I don't know. Don't know if that's canon, Michael. Okay, well, we have talked about all 26 episodes, according to Nick, of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 6. Being that is the case, is there anything else that you wish to say that we haven't already covered regarding the 6th season of The Next Generation?
No, I think we pretty much covered it, at least from my end.
I think this is probably the most thorough covering of a season that we have done to date. By the math. So what I guess I get to do at this time is thank my lovely Star Trek panel, Nick and Sarah and Kyle and Michael, for joining me once again to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 6. And because we have talked about the 6th season and there's more to come, it's time to roll the credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kels Rezmer. Kels played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole shebang was engineered by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us, give us stars, provide comments, or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon are just a few of the places you can find us, but we're also on YouTube. We have our website, and we're now on Patreon at patreon.com/CouchPotatoesUnite. If you really love us, pledge your support by becoming one of our United Couch Potatoes as we grow our little sofa-populated corner corner of the world. Otherwise, feel free to tell us how we're doing, what we should add, subtract, keep, or toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions for shows we might consider, contact us at our website where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatorsunitepodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, our Patreon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Though, of course, we add new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time, and always have new episodes coming down the pipe. Just listen to our intros. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what shows we cover, just search for us. Find us wherever you do searchable things on the internet. Don't forget that exclamation point, or contact us via our website, our email, our social media accounts, and our Patreon to stay up on all the new events and episodes by our humble little podcast, Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point. Until the next time, all the Trek series of the past, with the exception of Discovery and the animated series and Picard and probably some other ones, are all available on just about every streamer you can think of, but we're not going to give preference to one unless they call us and give us the moolah. So in the meantime, our Star Trek 50 Plus series panel will next reconvene to discuss the 7th and final season of The Next Generation and part 11 of this Looking Back retrospective very shortly. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned!
Bye.